or a wheel on a vehicle. This vehicle won't go anywhere if not all of them are connected. So what I mean by this is having a way, a system, some type of software or some type of management system where you can enter the record of every phone call, every in-person conversation, and every email that is sent and received. It is an extra step, but you will definitely thank yourself later down the road there. Okay. Pitfall number 3 is guessing when you don't know. What do I mean by this? We tend to be some of the best psychics around when it comes to our marketing. What I mean by this is when someone says, what marketing activities are getting you the best results, not often is it that we are actually going based off of statistics. It's a gut feeling, or it's maybe the success of the campaigns over the last 2 weeks because it's fresh in our mind. What I want you to do is get in the habit of researching even when you don't want to. Or if it's not possible to research because you don't have any data, get in the habit of taking the action so that you don't have to face this problem of guessing in the future. Find a way that you can track what is working and what is not working. And before you make the next decision about what you're going to spend money or time on with regards to your marketing, review those statistics very closely. Most of us are operating on a shoestring budget, and not many of us have a lot of extra time we can expend on things that don't work. So this is a critical step. Again, the most common case of this guessing when you don't know, what I'm really zeroing in on here today is guessing on the marketing expenses. It is or isn't working is the quote here. What it boils down to is an oversight of the cost per lead. And what I mean by cost per lead, this is the cost that you are okay to spend depending on the conversion ratio and your time to close for a related program. So an example would be if I spend $300 a month on a particular campaign, the amount of leads that I generate from it divided over that 300 equals my cost per lead, which is the most essential stat and pretty much the only stat you need to track. If you think in these terms, you'll never making the mistake of analyzing a campaign only based on the number of leads it generated. So what I mean here is you could have 2 campaigns side by side, a flyer that you sent out, and perhaps you do a online Facebook ad or you have an ad in the local newspaper. It's not always about which one generates the most leads. It's the cost of the leads that I want you to pay attention to. So that way, as you move forward, you invest your time and your money only into campaigns that you can afford. Pitfall number 4, and this is more of I would say an attitude within the business owner. And it's quite common that we say something like, if they're interested in lessons, then they'll come in, and I'll leave it at that. I'm sorry to say, and it might sound a bit aggressive, but this is a great attitude for going broke and no longer being able to provide the quality services that you provide to improve the lives of people around you. It is our commitment, our burden, our job, whatever you want to call it, to connect with people and educate them on the benefits of what we teach. All of us are in this business because we believe in what we teach. So part of that is the commitment to communicate with those and continue to follow up with them. And I'm going to show you some ways you can automate this, but regardless of how you go about it, you cannot leave it up to people to come to you. That's the message here. If you can change that attitude, and I'm not saying anybody here today has it, but if it is present when you do your evaluation of yourself, and you can change that attitude, you will enjoy abundance while you improve more lives around you. So I hope you can do whatever it takes to start to realize what we want to do here as we move forward is always have some form of outbound contact with the people that have made contact with us in the past who did not end up becoming our students. So that moves us on to the next portion of today's webinar, which is efficient and personal lead management. And I've got 2 pictures here because we do need to be a finely tuned machine. But usually when I say that, the first thing that people start to picture in their brain is losing the personal touch, and that's not what we're talking about. It's a combination of both working tightly together. So let's talk about effective and personal lead management. I'm going to role play kind of through a mock scenario here. So during first contact, first thing I want you to do is learn as much as you can about this person. So if they're calling you or they're walking through the doors, hear everything around them. Make sure that they know, this is the person calling you or walking through your doors. Make sure that they know that your number 1 priority is us understanding them and their needs, and that's it. Also, you might want to look through your marketing material. Does it ask any questions? Does your marketing material give any of the prospective students the impression that you're centered around what their needs are, and that's why it would be good for them to come down and check you out. Also, does your material or does your phone calls, the phone calls that you have with these people communicate in any way that you understand what it is like to try something new and that you're here to help them through the process? A lot of people are interested in yoga, but they're a little intimidated because they've never done it before. And it doesn't matter if you're a doctor or if you're somebody who's working part-time in a retail outfit. There is always insecurities around trying something new. So it's so important for us to think of intelligent ways in our marketing collateral to communicate that we understand that and to help them through that process. And I said this earlier, but again, what about the way the phone calls are being conducted? All the people who answer the phone at your studio need to be able to connect with that beginning student, with that person that they used to be before they became involved in yoga. Using complex terms that they might not have heard of, or assuming that they understand they need to bring a mat or particular materials, these are the things we want to avoid. And maybe a little cheat sheet of questions to ask people should be taped to the front desk right by the phone, so it reminds everybody to go through the process. Also, if you have an email that automatically responds to anybody who visits your website and fills out information, this email also needs to do this. It needs to cover just the basic FAQs and make sure people realize that, again, you are centered around their needs and making sure they're comfortable. That's the message here. After we've communicated this, we need to learn as much as we can about how they landed on us. So what I'm saying is when someone calls or walks through the doors, these are the leads we want more of, right? So let's determine how we got this particular lead. It's the best clue for getting more of them. And if you're already getting a lot of them already, that's great. But I want to ask you which ones cost the most and which ones cost the least. If you're having strong lead generation, the next step from there is optimizing it so that it doesn't cost you any more than it should. If we can figure that out immediately and determine it, then we can also optimize generation of more of those leads. Okay, so we've talked about generating the leads. We've talked about when we first speak to them, we want to learn as much about them as we can and make sure they understand we want to connect with their needs. From there, we ask questions such as, how did you hear of us? And then this is the big three. These are essentially the things that I really hope we can learn on every phone call or on every first in-person meeting with the person that's looking at our school. How did they hear of you? What is their previous experience? Are they a yogi already? Or have they already been training for 3 or 4 years? Might be interested in some instructor training? Or is this the very first time they've ever done this and they can't even reach down and touch their toes? You need to track this because it's going to be very important later. And then lastly, what is the interest category? What was driving them to want to try yoga, or more importantly, what was driving them to want to try it with you? From there, we want to invite them to the lessons they will most likely attend. And what I mean by that is invite people to come down within the next 48 hours. Anything further to that, they're going to forget. Life is a busy thing, and you can draw your own conclusion of how that goes. If you do leave it to that type of situation, you'll probably never see them. So select a couple lesson times within 48 hours of the phone call or the first time that they walk in, and from there, hopefully, they can center in on the one that they'd like to come to that fits their needs the best. What I want you to do is have email templates ready for both scenarios. What I mean is this, having an email template that can go to the person who booked the lesson, meaning they said, okay, I'll try to come to this lesson, and also one for those that didn't book. So if they call you and they're just kicking the tire, or if they're ready to try a lesson and they're going to come down, either way, they get an email that just further leverages that relationship. Thanks for calling today. It was so great to meet you. We're really excited to have you come down and try a lesson. By the way, here's a couple things that we would like you to review for your first lesson. That would be if they did book the lesson. If they didn't book the lesson, think of this as like your online media kit. All you're doing is, again, you're thanking them for their time and interest, and you're providing them with some more information so that when they are ready, they will remember you. Just try and create that awareness. Send the respective template depending on the outcome of that phone call or first meeting, and make it easy and dummy-proof so that this always happens regardless if you're at the studio that day or if it's one of your team members. And before I move on to the next step, usually when I do this webinar, I do get a lot of questions about, well, what would we put in those templates? So I'm going to go through just a couple examples really briefly here. If you're a one-person show, have the email come from the studio. It adds a little bit of professionalism. It creates the visual that this is a bigger studio than it may